The interstellar capital of Cytheria was unlike any city Adrian Hale had ever seen. Towering spires of shimmering metal rose into the sky, their surfaces reflecting the soft glow of twin suns. Flying vehicles zipped through the air, leaving trails of iridescent light behind them, and holographic messages floated above crowded streets. Alien beings of every imaginable shape moved about, their conversations producing musical tones that Adrian could only partially understand. Humans were rare here, and Adrian felt their presence like a subtle vibration among the alien energy. Adrian adjusted the strap of his formal uniform and took a deep breath. Today was not a normal day. Today he would meet Prince Rhinoc, the 25-year-old heir to the Cytherian throne, a royal known across the galaxy for both brilliance and arrogance. Adrian's role was simple: attend a diplomatic event, represent humanity, and maintain peace. But he also knew that in the alien courts of Cytheria, appearances mattered more than actions. One wrong move, one careless word, and a simple insult could escalate into something dangerous. As Adrian entered the grand hall, his senses were immediately overwhelmed. The walls were made of a translucent crystal that glimmered like water under sunlight. From the ceiling hung enormous chandeliers that appeared to float, their light refracted into countless colors. Hundreds of aliens milled about, each carrying themselves with an air of confidence and superiority. They were dressed in ceremonial attire, displaying ranks and achievements Adrian would never fully understand. At the far end of the hall, standing on a raised platform, was Prince Rhinoc. The alien royal skin shimmered in shifting patterns of silver and blue, and his eyes glowed with a soft inner light. He moved with the grace of someone entirely certain of his place in the galaxy, and Adrian noticed immediately that many of the assembled diplomats seemed to orbit around him like satellites. "Ah," Rhinoc's voice rang out, smooth and commanding. "And here is the human, the species that still walks with two legs and fears its own reflection." A ripple of laughter passed through the crowd. Adrian's stomach tightened, but he maintained his posture. Adrian could feel the eyes of the other attendees on him. Many were waiting for a reaction: anger, embarrassment, or maybe some desperate attempt at wit. But Adrian did something entirely unexpected. He turned and walked away. Not angrily, not hastily, just steadily, calmly. Each step was deliberate, silent, yet full of weight. The hall fell into a stunned silence. Even the guards in attendance stopped moving for a moment, caught in the quiet tension that Adrian's silence created. Rhinoc's glowing eyes narrowed, confusion flickering across his features. No human had ever ignored him in such a way. To the Cytherians, a direct challenge to royal authority was unimaginable, and to be ignored entirely was unheard of. As Adrian reached the edge of the platform, he glanced briefly over his shoulder. Though his expression betrayed nothing, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't try to explain. He simply walked, leaving the room buzzing with questions and whispers. "Who is he?" a young diplomat whispered to her companion. "Human," the other replied, his voice tinged with curiosity, "but not like any human we have ever seen." Adrian's calm departure was not the result of arrogance or pride. He understood that reactions often gave power to those who sought to provoke. By walking away, he denied Rhinoc the satisfaction of seeing him rattled. In that simple act, Adrian made a quiet statement. Humans were not to be underestimated. Outside the main hall, Adrian found a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The twin suns cast long shadows across the crystalline towers, and he could see ships taking off from distant pads, their engines leaving trails of glowing energy. He allowed himself a small sigh of relief. The first step was always the hardest. He had faced insult and remained composed, but he knew the harder trials were yet to come. Back inside, Rhinoc's face burned with a mix of anger and disbelief. His advisors were whispering hurriedly, trying to explain the human's unusual behavior. Many suggested that Adrian must be mocking the prince in return, but Rhinoc felt no mockery, only calm, unshakable silence. It was unsettling. "I do not understand," Rhinoc finally said, his voice low but carrying authority. "Humans are supposed to be primitive. They should cower, argue, or beg. But this one..." He walks away, without a word. Without fear. Why? One of his advisors, an older alien with translucent skin and multiple eyes, bowed slightly. "Perhaps, Your Highness, the human is unwise. Or perhaps his species is more clever than we thought." "Clever?" Rhinoc's eyes glowed brighter. "No, humans are small, fragile, and short-lived. They cannot compare to our strength or our intellect. This one merely pretends to be calm. I will see if he can prove his worth. If he cannot, he will regret this insolence. The prince's mind began plotting. He would challenge Adrian, show him that Zitherians were far superior, and teach the human a lesson in humility. But he underestimated Adrian's patience and strategic mind. Adrian's walk had not been an act of weakness. It was the first step in demonstrating human potential in a way that no alien expected. Meanwhile, Adrian returned to his quarters within the diplomatic palace. The room was modest by Zitherian standards, with smooth metallic walls and furniture that seemed to float in midair. He sat at a small desk and began reviewing the schedule for the coming days. There would be formal meetings, introductions to alien officials, and discussions about trade, defense, and exploration. All routine, but now they carried the extra weight of Rhinox's scrutiny. Adrian knew that in alien courts, respect was often gained through display of skill or intellect, not words. By remaining composed, he had captured attention, but he would need to prove his abilities soon. He thought about humanity, about Earth, and about the countless achievements of his species. Humans had survived harsh climates, built civilizations from scratch, and explored beyond their planet, all despite limitations others saw as weaknesses. Adrian understood that these strengths were not always obvious, but they were real. And soon he would demonstrate them. That evening, the palace held a formal dinner. The hall was decorated with glowing flora that emitted soft light, and tables floated above the ground in carefully arranged patterns. Adrian entered, noticing that more eyes than usual followed his movements. Conversations paused briefly, then resumed, a mixture of curiosity and speculation buzzing through the air. Prince Rhinox made his entrance shortly after, accompanied by guards and attendants. His presence was commanding, and the laughter from the earlier insult had faded into murmurs of anticipation. The prince's gaze locked on Adrian immediately, and for a moment the entire room seemed to shrink around them. "You walk well, human," Rhinox said quietly, leaning slightly toward Adrian. "But walking cannot hide weakness forever." Adrian simply nodded, polite but unflinching. "I believe actions speak louder than words," he replied calmly. Rhinox's lips twitched into a faint, annoyed smile. "Very well. We shall see soon enough whether your species has anything worth admiring." The dinner passed with tense politeness. Alien delicacies were served, some familiar in appearance but strange in taste, others completely alien. Adrian tried them all with quiet interest, observing the reactions of other guests and noting patterns in behavior. Even during meals, he remained alert, aware that every movement, every expression could reveal more about Zitherian society. When the evening concluded, Adrian returned to his balcony, watching the twin suns dip below the horizon. The city glowed beneath him, alive with energy, lights, and movement. He allowed himself a small smile. The first challenge had been simply to survive the insult without giving it power. The next challenges would test his mind, his skill, and ultimately, humanity's place in the galaxy. Tonight, humans were underestimated. Tomorrow, Adrian planned to show that they were more than anyone imagined. And when that day came, Prince Rhinox and all the other aliens would see that the calm, silent human who had walked away without a word was not weak at all. With the stars beginning to shine above Zitheria, Adrian allowed himself a final deep breath.
He had not spoken.
He had not fought, but he had already begun to change perceptions, one silent step at a time. The morning after the formal dinner, the palace corridors buzzed with activity. Delegates from countless star systems moved between rooms discussing trade agreements, scientific discoveries, and political alliances. Yet, despite the flurry of activity, all eyes kept returning to Adrian Hale, the human who had walked away from a royal insult. Whispers followed him wherever he went, and some aliens exchanged looks of both curiosity and disbelief. Adrian had expected the attention. In the halls of Zitheria, reputation mattered as much as skill. What he hadn't expected was Prince Rhinox himself appearing at his door, accompanied by 2 guards and an air of royal authority that seemed to press against Adrian's chest. "Human," Rhinox said, his tone measured but edged with irritation. "You have displayed remarkable restraint." His glowing eyes studied Adrian with an intensity that made even experienced diplomats uncomfortable. "But words are nothing. Actions matter. I propose a challenge, a test of skill, intellect, and adaptability. Should you succeed, you may earn respect. Should you fail, you will demonstrate why humans are considered primitive. Adrian raised an eyebrow but said nothing at first. His mind ran through possibilities. This challenge could be a trap, a display of power meant to humiliate him further, or it could be an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's ingenuity. Either way, he understood one thing clearly. Accepting the challenge was inevitable. Declining would signal weakness, and the insults would only grow. "I accept," Adrian said finally, his voice calm and steady. Not to prove arrogance, but to show that humans can contribute meaningfully. Reinach's eyes flickered with surprise and a hint of respect, though he quickly masked it. "Very well," he said. "You will participate in the galactic trials. You will compete with others who are the finest representatives of their species. There will be puzzles, physical challenges, and survival tests. Do not underestimate the difficulty." The announcement sent ripples through the palace. Humans had never been invited to the trials. They were designed for alien elites, beings with centuries of training, advanced technology, and extraordinary abilities far beyond anything a human could manage. Adrian's acceptance was met with a mixture of astonishment and skepticism. The following day, Adrian found himself in the trial arena, a vast structure located on the outskirts of the city. The arena was immense, with multiple sections designed for different tests. One area simulated alien environments, another contained obstacle courses that defied gravity, and yet another was a chamber for mental puzzles that could rearrange themselves based on the participants' actions. Competitors from dozens of species were already present. Some floated on anti-gravity pads, their movements graceful and precise. Others had multiple limbs and eyes, allowing them to perceive patterns humans could not even imagine. Adrian felt a momentary pang of doubt, but he pushed it aside. Humans had strengths too: adaptability, creativity, and the ability to think outside the expected patterns. The first trial was a test of problem solving. Each participant entered a room filled with shifting panels and symbols, meant to test logic, observation, and memory. The aliens moved quickly, relying on instinct and specialized knowledge from their species. Adrian, however, paused. He studied the patterns carefully, noting how the panels shifted when pressure was applied. Slowly, methodically, he began to manipulate them, not in the way the instructions suggested, but in a way he thought might solve the puzzle faster. Time passed. Some aliens completed the task quickly, confident in their approach, but as the room shifted again, many of their solutions failed. Adrian, observing each change and adapting to it, gradually progressed further. By the end of the trial, he had solved the puzzle, not the fastest, but in a way that demonstrated a combination of logic and creativity no other participant had used. Next came the survival simulation. Participants were placed in a recreated hostile environment from an uncharted planet, complete with treacherous terrain, unpredictable weather, and dangerous alien wildlife. Some competitors moved with natural agility, leaping over gaps or climbing walls with ease. Adrian, lacking these physical advantages, had to rely on strategy. He examined the terrain, observed the creature's behavior, and created simple tools from available materials. A small rod became a walking stick. A broken panel became a shield. He moved with caution but also with calculated speed, anticipating danger rather than reacting blindly. The other aliens struggled when their instincts failed them. Some were too reliant on their physical gifts and found themselves trapped or cornered. Adrian, using human adaptability and observation, not only survived but reached the checkpoint efficiently. Word of the humans' unconventional methods began to circulate among competitors, and even some of the Scytherian observers leaned forward in curiosity. The third challenge combined intellect and teamwork. Participants were grouped into mixed-species teams to solve a complex task, reactivating a dormant alien machine whose purpose was unclear. Most teams argued and competed for dominance, with stronger or faster species ignoring human suggestions. Adrian, however, observed the machine carefully and asked questions rather than making assumptions. He noticed patterns others missed and suggested small adjustments to test hypotheses. Slowly, his team followed his approach and the machine responded. When the machine finally activated, it emitted a harmonious tone that resonated throughout the chamber. The other participants looked at Adrian with surprise and newfound respect. Some of the alien competitors, previously dismissive, began to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Meanwhile, Prince Reinach watched from the observation deck above. His eyes burned with a mix of irritation and fascination. The human had survived challenges that should have been impossible for someone of his species. Yet there was no arrogance, no boastful display, just calm focus and clever thinking. Reinach realized, perhaps reluctantly, that underestimating humans had been a grave mistake. Between trials, Adrian had little time to rest. Observing his surroundings, he noticed subtle patterns in the alien training methods. He saw how some relied entirely on instincts or past experiences, while others depended on technology or innate abilities. Adrian took mental notes, understanding that the upcoming trials would require more than speed or strength. They would require strategy, observation, and the willingness to adapt when the expected approach failed. On the third day, a new trial began: zero-gravity navigation. Participants were required to maneuver through a floating maze filled with shifting obstacles. Aliens with natural anti-gravity abilities or multiple limbs moved easily, spinning and gliding through the air. Humans, lacking such gifts, faced a unique challenge. Adrian remembered a simple principle: leverage and momentum. Using small pushes and careful planning, he propelled himself through the maze, avoiding obstacles in ways the aliens had not anticipated. By the end of the day, Adrian had completed the course with minimal collisions, drawing murmurs of approval from the judges. The alien competitors were no longer dismissive. Some even paused to watch him, curious about how a human, physically limited, could succeed where others relied on superior traits. Reinach, still observing, began to feel an unfamiliar sensation, respect tinged with frustration. He had underestimated the human's ability to think creatively under pressure, to adapt quickly, and to remain calm when everything seemed impossible. Adrian's silence, his refusal to react emotionally, and his patient observation had become as much a weapon as his intellect. As the sun set over Cytheria, Adrian stood on the balcony of the arena's observation deck, looking out over the city. The twin suns cast long golden shadows across the spires and towers, painting the city in warm light. He allowed himself a brief smile. The trials were only beginning, but he had already achieved something important. He had forced the alien elites to reconsider what humans were capable of. Back in the Royal Observation Room, Reinach turned to one of his advisors. He survives. He adapts, and yet, he does not flaunt victory. There is a strength in that calm, a kind of power we cannot see. I must admit I misjudged him and perhaps his species. The advisor nodded. Your Highness, humans are different. They rely on ingenuity, observation, and intuition. They may not have the advantages of our species, but they make up for it in ways we cannot predict. Reinach's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Then we shall see if this human can continue. I will challenge him further. Let him prove that humans deserve recognition, or let him fail. Either way, the outcome will be instructive. For Adrian, the days ahead promised even greater tests. There would be physical challenges that seemed impossible, puzzles that defied logic, and situations designed to push him to the brink. But he faced them without fear. He understood that human potential was not limited by natural gifts alone. It was amplified by creativity, resilience, and adaptability. As night fell and the city below shimmered with alien lights, Adrian prepared for the next day. The trials were not simply tests. They were opportunities to show that humans, though small and physically limited, could excel in ways others did not expect. The galaxy might see humans as primitive, but Adrian was determined to demonstrate that humans were capable, clever, and worthy of respect, and in that quiet determination, he found not just confidence but purpose. The arena buzzed with anticipation as the next phase of the galactic trials began. This challenge was unlike any before. It combined physical endurance, strategy, and mental acuity into a single test. The competitors were to traverse a dense alien forest, filled with strange creatures and unpredictable terrain, and retrieve fragments of an ancient device scattered across the area. Whoever collected the most fragments and returned safely would gain a significant advantage in the overall competition. Adrian Hale surveyed the dense alien foliage from the edge of the forest. Unlike humans, many species here could leap high, glide silently, or see in the ultraviolet spectrum. Others could sense vibrations in the ground or communicate telepathically with teammates. Adrian, however, had only his human senses, intelligence, and adaptability. Yet he smiled slightly. Humans had always turned apparent disadvantages into unexpected advantages. As the starting signal blared, Competitors surged forward. Aliens with multiple limbs swung from vines. Creatures with wings soared above the treetops, and those with enhanced senses immediately identified the fragments' locations. Adrian began cautiously, observing patterns in the terrain and the behavior of local fauna. Some of the creatures were small and harmless, while others were predators, moving with speed and precision. After a few minutes, Adrian noticed a pattern. The predators moved in predictable circuits, avoiding certain areas while defending others. Using a stick he found on the ground, he created simple diversions, drawing the creatures away from fragments he intended to collect. Each step required careful planning. A misstep could cost him precious time, or worse. While navigating a narrow cliff path above a shallow river, Adrian spotted one of the fragments. As he reached for it, a competitor suddenly appeared from the shadows, a being with elongated limbs and shimmering skin. It was Zilla, a skilled tactician from another planet. She froze, clearly startled that a human had reached the fragment before her. "You're faster than I expected," Zilla said, her voice cautious but curious. "Most humans wouldn't even survive 5 minutes in this forest." Adrian offered a slight smile. "Observation and planning can make up for speed." Zilla studied him carefully, sensing a level of calm and intelligence she had not seen in any other competitor. Most of the alien participants relied on their natural advantages or brute strength. Adrian relied on thought. She made a decision quickly. "I think we could help each other," she said. "Two can cover more ground than one, and if we coordinate, we can avoid the predators." Adrian nodded. Alliance was not a foreign concept to humans. Working together increased chances of survival, and he quickly shared his plan. Move methodically, collect fragments efficiently, and use minor distractions to avoid dangerous creatures. Zilla agreed, and the two of them moved forward as a team. The forest tested them in ways neither expected. Sudden storms lashed the treetops, forcing them to find shelter. Predators appeared in unexpected locations, testing their reflexes and coordination. Yet Adrian's human ingenuity combined with Zilla's speed and perception made them a formidable team. Where Zilla saw danger, Adrian saw opportunity. Where Adrian devised a diversion, Zilla executed it flawlessly. Slowly, they gathered fragments while competitors relying on instinct alone fell behind. During a short break beside a bubbling alien stream, Zilla glanced at Adrian. "You are unlike anyone I have ever met. Calm, careful, yet decisive. Most humans I've read about in galactic histories are primitive. You prove otherwise." Adrian shrugged modestly. "We have weaknesses, yes, but our strength lies in creativity, adaptability, and teamwork. We survive because we find ways others overlook." Zilla smiled faintly, clearly impressed. "Perhaps your species is underestimated for that reason. The others rely on their abilities alone, never thinking beyond the obvious." Adrian glanced toward the canopy above, where a small, brightly glowing predator prowled silently. Exactly. Underestimation can be an advantage if we use it carefully. Their progress did not go unnoticed. Renock observed from a hidden gallery, his glowing eyes narrowing as he watched the human navigate the forest. Adrian had survived not because he was faster or stronger, but because he was smart, patient, and cooperative. The prince's irritation grew with every fragment Adrian collected. It was becoming clear that humans, despite physical limitations, could excel in ways the aliens had never anticipated. Midway through the challenge, the situation became more dangerous. A large predator with 4 limbs ending in sharp talons suddenly blocked their path. Zilla froze, ready to flee, but Adrian quickly assessed the environment. Nearby, vines hung loosely from the trees and rocks were scattered along the riverbank. He instructed Zilla to throw some rocks to one side, while he swung a vine to distract the creature. The predator lunged, missed, and crashed into a tree. In a fluid motion, they retrieved another fragment and moved on. "Impressive," Zilla said, breathless. "I've never seen anyone, alien or human, think so clearly under pressure." Adrian smiled faintly. "Pressure reveals opportunities if you look for them." As they reached the forest's edge, they noticed something unusual. A competitor attempting to sabotage others by luring predators toward them. It was subtle, almost invisible. Adrian's sharp observation caught the act immediately. With a few quick instructions, he and Zilla avoided the trap, while the trickster fell into the predator's path. The situation reminded Adrian that not all danger was natural. Some threats were deliberate, designed to manipulate perception and exploit weaknesses. When they finally emerged from the forest, they had collected more fragments than any other team. Observers, including Reinach, were impressed, though the prince hid it behind a mask of annoyance. Adrian's calm demeanor, careful planning, and creative solutions had allowed a human to succeed in a trial meant for alien elites. Later, in a debriefing room, Zilla spoke quietly to Adrian. "You've proven something important today, not just to me but to everyone watching. Humans are clever, adaptable, and resourceful. I want to see more of your methods. Perhaps we can work together in the next phase." Adrian nodded. "Humans believe in learning from others, and sometimes we can teach too." Zilla's eyes glowed faintly in agreement. "Then we shall see what we can accomplish together. The next challenges will test not just survival, but strategy, cunning, and alliances. You will need allies as much as skill." Back in the observation gallery, Reinach's expression hardened. He had expected Adrian to struggle, perhaps fail outright, and yet the human thrived. Each victory was quiet, subtle, yet undeniable. Reinach's mind raced. How could one species, seemingly weaker and smaller, outmaneuver and outperform those far superior in physical or technological gifts? Reinach realized something he had never admitted aloud. Intelligence, adaptability, and creativity could rival raw strength or centuries of experience. And humans, it seemed, had these qualities in abundance. He clenched his fists, vowing silently that he would raise the stakes. Adrian's success had to be tested further, pushed to the limits to see whether human ingenuity could withstand extreme pressure. Meanwhile, Adrian and Zilla reviewed their performance. Each fragment retrieved had revealed more than its physical presence. It had revealed patterns, strategies, and potential weaknesses in other competitors. Adrian carefully noted which aliens relied purely on instinct, which used brute strength, and which were adaptable. Zilla provided insights about her own species' strengths and vulnerabilities. Together, they formed a strategy not just to survive, but to excel in upcoming trials. "Tomorrow," Adrian said, "we will face tests that combine danger, intellect, and uncertainty. Preparation will matter as much as execution, but I believe humans can succeed if we remain focused." Zilla smiled, clearly impressed. "You speak with the calm confidence of someone who has already considered every possibility." "I've underestimated humans in the past, but I will not again." The alliance between Adrian and Zilla marked a turning point. Not only had humans survived and excelled in a trial designed for alien elites, but they had also begun forming connections that could influence the outcomes of future challenges. Adrian realized that proving human potential was not just about individual skill. It was about showing that humans could think, adapt, and collaborate in ways others did not expect. As night fell over Cytheria, Adrian stood on the balcony of the training grounds, looking at the twin suns dipping below the horizon. The city shimmered below, alive with alien energy, yet Adrian felt a quiet confidence. He had survived a trial that should have been impossible. He had gained an unexpected ally, and he had begun changing perceptions, not with words but with actions, intelligence, and calm resolve. Tomorrow the trials would become even more difficult. But Adrian knew one thing. Humans were not defined by physical strength or natural gifts alone. Their true power lay in their ability to think, adapt, and overcome. And in that strength, Adrian felt certain. Humanity could not be underestimated. The next phase of the galactic trials was unlike anything Adrian Hale had faced before. The challenge was called the Artifact Retrieval Mission, a test designed to push every competitor to the limits of skill, intelligence, and courage. Each participant was sent to a hostile, uncharted planet to locate and retrieve a fragment of an ancient alien artifact. The planet itself was alive with dangers, unstable terrain, extreme weather, and wildlife that seemed almost designed to outthink intruders. Adrian had little time to prepare. He packed only what he could carry: a compact energy tool, a durable multi-purpose cloak, and a small kit of survival essentials. He trusted his instincts and knowledge above all else, understanding that adaptability was his greatest asset. Zilla, his new ally, joined him. Together, they had to navigate not only the physical dangers but the unpredictable strategies of other competitors. As their drop pod descended through the planet's atmosphere, Adrian studied the terrain below. Jagged cliffs stretched as far as the eye could see, while rivers of molten crystal cut through deep valleys. Strange clouds thick with electric energy crackled above. From his vantage point, it seemed impossible that any human or alien could survive here. Yet Adrian remained calm. "Stay close," he instructed Zilla. We cannot rely on speed alone. Observation and strategy will keep us alive. Zilla nodded, her expression serious. I trust your judgment. Let's move carefully. They landed in a narrow valley, the pod's engines hissing as it sealed. Immediately, the environment tested them. Acidic rain began to fall, sizzling against the pod and nearby rocks. Adrian quickly activated a protective shield from his multi-purpose cloak, forming a dome of resistance that allowed them to step outside safely. He assessed the surroundings, noting the positions of sharp rocks, overhanging cliffs, and shadowed crevices. Their first obstacle was a wide chasm with unstable ledges. Zilla looked at the gap and frowned. We could leap across, but it's risky. One mistake. Adrian studied the terrain. The ledges were uneven, but a series of rock outcroppings formed a potential path. We'll use these rocks, he said. We'll test each step before fully committing. Take your time and watch my movements. With precise steps, Adrian led Zilla across the chasm, using small sticks to stabilize loose rocks and observing which ones would bear weight. Every movement was careful, deliberate, and calculated. Other competitors, relying on instinct or brute force, had fallen, or barely survived, while Adrian and Zilla moved with efficiency and foresight. As they progressed, strange creatures emerged. Sleek four-legged predators with reflective hides prowled in the distance, their eyes glowing with intelligence. Most aliens would have tried to outrun them, relying on speed or advanced abilities. Adrian, however, paused. He observed the creatures' patterns. They were hunting but predictable in their pacing. Using reflective shards from the environment, he created distractions that lured the predators away from their path. Zilla marveled at his ingenuity. You see things differently than anyone else, she said, dodging a sudden lunge from one of the creatures. Most competitors would panic, but you... Adrian shook his head slightly. We survive by understanding, not by fear. Fear blinds, but observation reveals opportunity. Hours passed, and they navigated through a series of increasingly dangerous environments. Electric storms that could fry unshielded equipment, narrow tunnels that required both agility and problem-solving to cross, and areas of unstable terrain that threatened to collapse underfoot. Adrian's human adaptability shone in every scenario. He crafted simple yet effective tools from environmental resources. A flexible vine became a grappling line. A broken piece of crystal formed a reflective signaling device, and scattered rocks became markers to track their path. Finally, they reached the first artifact fragment. It was lodged atop a jagged spire, almost unreachable by conventional means. Zilla's instincts told her to climb at full speed, using her species' natural agility. Adrian, however, paused. He examined the spire carefully, noting weak points, ledges, and potential hazards. Follow my lead, he said. Rushing will cost us more than it gains. We need precision. With patience and careful coordination, Adrian led Zilla up the spire, using small environmental cues to balance and test each hold. Step by step, they reached the fragment. Adrian's careful planning allowed them to secure it without injury or accident, while competitors who had rushed past often fell or triggered traps. As they descended, Adrian noticed something troubling. Another competitor had been observing them from a distance. Rhinox's presence, or at least his influence, was evident. Some aliens had been assigned to test the humans indirectly, seeing whether they could adapt to unexpected threats or sabotage. Adrian realized that survival was not just about the planet's hazards, it was also about strategy, outthinking rivals. He whispered to Zilla, "We cannot assume threats are natural. Watch for patterns, for traps, for moves meant to exploit our weaknesses." Zilla nodded, understanding immediately. Her respect for the human's foresight deepened. "I've learned more from you in a few hours than from years of training," she admitted. The second artifact fragment awaited in a cave network deep below the valley. The entrance was narrow and dark, the air thick with spores that dulled senses. While Zilla instinctively wanted to rush, Adrian again moved slowly, marking their path, noting unstable surfaces and using a small portable sensor to detect dangerous gases. The cave was a maze, but his careful observation allowed them to navigate efficiently while avoiding hazards that trapped other competitors. At one point, a ceiling stalactite loosened and threatened to fall. Zilla froze. Adrian quickly created a small support using nearby rocks and vines, stabilizing the danger just long enough for them to pass safely. His calm, analytical thinking made the impossible seem achievable. By the end of the day, Adrian and Zilla had collected both fragments, outperforming nearly every competitor in the mission. Their success was not due to speed, strength, or advanced abilities. It was the result of planning, observation, and ingenuity, qualities often underestimated in humans. Back at the arena for evaluation, the judges were impressed. Competitors who had relied solely on natural abilities struggled, while Adrian and Zilla demonstrated precision and adaptability. The humans' approach forced a re-evaluation of what constituted strength and skill. Humans were small and physically limited, yet their intelligence allowed them to solve problems others could not. Renock observed silently, his frustration growing. Adrian had survived challenges that seemed designed to crush him, and had done so without panic, without arrogance, and without relying on innate gifts. The prince's pride bristled at the realization. Humans could match, even exceed, the capabilities of elite alien species through sheer ingenuity and calm determination. Later that evening, Adrian reviewed the day's events with Zilla. The real challenge wasn't just the planet, he said. It was strategy. Every hazard, every competitor, every unexpected threat. It was all part of a bigger test, and we passed because we adapted instead of reacting. Zilla smiled. I've underestimated humans before, but I won't again. You think ahead in ways that even the most experienced competitors do not. I'm glad to be on your side, Adrian nodded. Strength alone isn't enough. Observation, intelligence, and calm judgment are just as powerful. If we combine those with teamwork, there's very little we cannot handle. As the twin suns set over Zytheria, Adrian stood on a balcony overlooking the city below, the lights shimmering like a field of stars. He allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The artifact retrieval mission had tested him in every way, physical, mental, and strategic. Yet more than success, it had achieved something else. It had begun changing perceptions. Aliens who had once seen humans as weak and simple now saw a species capable of remarkable ingenuity. Renock, back in his observation room, clenched his fists. He had underestimated Adrian, and by extension humanity. And he realized, though he would never admit it openly, that humans were far more formidable than he had assumed. Their ability to think, adapt, and survive in environments designed to be lethal gave them an edge that raw power alone could not match. Adrian's mind, however, was already moving forward. He knew the next trials would be even more demanding. Political intrigue, interspecies competition, and even deliberate sabotage awaited, but he felt no fear. Humans had a way of turning disadvantage into opportunity, and he was ready to prove it again. As night fell, the stars above Zytheria seemed to shine brighter than ever. For Adrian, each star represented not just a distant world, but a chance to show humanity's potential, and in that calm certainty, he felt prepared for whatever the galaxy would throw at him next. Humans were underestimated. But with intelligence, courage, and adaptability, Adrian knew they could excel where others failed. And the galaxy would soon begin to understand that lesson, whether they were ready or not. The final trial of the galactic trials was announced with dramatic ceremony. This test would combine everything the competitors had learned: intelligence, strategy, endurance, and courage. The participants were tasked with retrieving a legendary artifact from a planet known as Veyron Prime, a world that had repelled explorers for centuries. Its surface was a chaotic mix of jagged mountains, shifting deserts, and dangerous wildlife, and its magnetic storms interfered with most navigation systems. Adrian Hale stood beside Zilla in the preparation chamber, reviewing their supplies and equipment. The humans' calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the anxious murmurs of other competitors. Many relied on brute force or sheer alien abilities, confident that their gifts would carry them through. Adrian, however, had learned long ago that planning and adaptability were far more powerful than raw strength. The planet is unstable, Adrian said quietly, studying the holographic map projected before them. We cannot rely on speed or instinct alone. We must anticipate hazards, observe patterns, and adapt to changes in real time. Zilla nodded. I trust you. We'll face whatever comes together. The drop pod pierced Veyron Prime's turbulent atmosphere. Electric storms crackled around them, and winds strong enough to twist metal howled across the surface. When the pod touched down, It skidded across jagged terrain before settling. The doors opened, and Adrian and Zilla stepped out into a landscape that seemed alive with danger. The sky glowed with shifting colors and jagged rock formations jutted upward like sharp teeth. Their mission began immediately. The artifact was rumored to be located deep within a canyon, protected not only by natural hazards but by remnants of ancient alien defenses. Competitors fanned out across the terrain, many moving recklessly, confident that their natural gifts would ensure survival. Adrian, however, paused. He scanned the environment, noting magnetic fluctuations, unstable rock formations, and the presence of large predatory creatures that seemed to patrol the area. "Watch the winds," Adrian warned Zilla. "They shift unpredictably, and loose rocks can be deadly. We need to move carefully, step by step." Using minimal gear, Adrian devised tools from natural resources. A long, flexible branch became a lever to test rock stability. Reflective crystals signaled Zilla when a predator approached from behind, and carefully placed markers helped them navigate without becoming lost in the canyon's twisting passages. Hours passed as they navigated the dangerous terrain. A sudden sandstorm forced them to seek shelter beneath an overhang. The storm's electric charge disrupted most devices, but Adrian had anticipated this and relied on natural observation and tactile cues. While others panicked or became disoriented, Adrian remained composed, guiding Zilla safely through the storm. As they moved deeper into the canyon, they encountered the first challenge guarding the artifact, a massive chasm with jagged cliffs on either side and no obvious crossing. Zilla instinctively considered leaping, but Adrian quickly analyzed the environment. Small ledges and vines offered a potential path. "We'll test each step before committing," he said. "Rushing will cost us dearly." With careful precision, Adrian led the way, balancing on narrow ledges and securing handholds. Zilla followed, impressed by the human's foresight. Step by step, they crossed safely while others, relying on instinct alone, fell or were forced to turn back. Finally, they reached a cavern deep within the canyon, where the artifact awaited. It was enormous, glowing with an inner light that pulsed rhythmically as though alive. But retrieving it was not simple. Pressure plates, energy barriers, and shifting platforms made direct access impossible. Most competitors would have tried brute force or high-tech manipulation, but Adrian paused. "Every obstacle is a pattern," he murmured to Zilla. "We observe, test, and adapt. Force alone will not work." They carefully examined the energy barriers. By observing the pulse patterns, Adrian determined a sequence of movements that allowed them to bypass the fields. Using minimal energy, they activated platforms in a precise order, avoiding traps that would have triggered alarms or collapse. Other competitors attempted similar maneuvers, but most failed due to impatience or overconfidence. At the final step, Adrian realized a subtle hazard. The artifact itself was protected by a field that reacted to direct contact. Using a reflective crystal to redirect energy pulses and a flexible tool to stabilize pressure points, he reached the artifact without triggering the defenses. Zilla watched in awe as the human carefully secured the artifact fragment. As they exited the cavern, they encountered rival competitors attempting to block their path. Many expected the human to struggle, believing they could overpower him. Adrian paused, observing their formation, calculating options. Then, with a calm and decisive plan, he used terrain features and clever distractions to navigate around them, leaving the rivals frustrated and stunned. When they returned to the starting point, the judges and spectators erupted in astonishment. Adrian and Zilla had not only survived the planet's hazards but had retrieved the artifact efficiently and with minimal risk. The performance demonstrated not brute strength, but strategic intelligence, adaptability, and calm under pressure, qualities that set humans apart from every other species in the trials. Prince Rhinoc observed silently, his glowing eyes fixed on Adrian. For the first time, the arrogance that had always defined him was replaced by something new, respect tinged with disbelief. Adrian, a human, had succeeded where others with far more natural advantages had failed. Rhinoc clenched his fists, realizing that humans could not be measured by physical traits alone. In the formal debriefing that followed, Adrian spoke briefly but powerfully. "Humans are not defined by strength alone. We succeed by thinking, adapting, and working together. Our actions, not words, demonstrate our value. And in that we are capable of achievements you may not have expected. A hush fell over the audience. The words were simple, yet their meaning resonated across species. Humans, once dismissed as primitive and fragile, had proven themselves worthy not by boasting, but by demonstrating competence and ingenuity in extreme circumstances. Rhinoc, standing slightly apart, finally spoke. You have exceeded expectations, human. Not through arrogance, not through brute strength, but through clarity, observation, and calm decision-making. I respect that, Adrian nodded politely. He did not gloat or seek recognition. He understood that respect earned through action carried far more weight than words. Zilla beside him smiled. You've shown more than just survival skills. You've shown the true potential of your species. Many of us underestimated humans, but that mistake will not happen again. The trials concluded with awards and recognition, but for Adrian, the true achievement was far greater. He had changed perceptions. Humans were no longer seen as weak or insignificant. They were recognized as clever, adaptable, and capable of extraordinary accomplishments when faced with impossible odds. Even Rhinoc, once arrogant and dismissive, could not ignore the truth. The young alien royal had insulted Adrian at the beginning, expecting fear or embarrassment. Instead, Adrian had walked away calmly, and through a series of challenges that tested every aspect of skill and intellect. He had proved that humans were not to be underestimated. As the final ceremonies concluded, Adrian stood quietly on a balcony overlooking the city of Scifi. The twin suns set beyond the horizon, casting a golden glow over the crystalline towers. Below, aliens and humans alike moved with renewed understanding. Alliances, trade discussions, and diplomatic talks now carried a different tone. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were a species to be reckoned with, capable of ingenuity, courage, and strategy. Rhinoc approached, his expression serious but less rigid than before. You have demonstrated something extraordinary, human. Perhaps I was wrong to insult your kind. Today you have earned not only respect but recognition. Adrian inclined his head politely. Respect is earned through action, not words. I hope that humanity can continue to contribute positively to the galaxy. Rhinoc nodded, a rare moment of humility for the young royal. Indeed, your actions speak louder than my words ever could. Humans are not what I expected, and perhaps that is their greatest strength. Adrian turned away from the prince, walking along the balcony with Zilla by his side. He did not need accolades or praise. What mattered was that humans had proven themselves quietly and effectively in a universe that had underestimated them. The trials had tested every skill, every instinct, and every decision, and humans had prevailed through intellect, courage, and adaptability. As night fell, the city shimmered under the light of distant stars. Adrian looked to the horizon, imagining the countless worlds yet to explore and the challenges yet to face. The trials had ended, but the journey was far from over. Humanity had begun to show its true potential, and the galaxy would take notice quietly. With calm determination, Adrian walked away, leaving a lasting impression. Humans were clever, resilient, and capable of greatness, and the universe, once dismissive of their potential, had begun to understand that sometimes quiet strength and intelligence mattered more than all else.